Marcus Wellington never expected the woman in the simple gray sweatshirt to touch his million-dollar prototype. "Fix it if you can," he sneered, certain she'd fail like his top engineers. But when Kate Williams rolled up her sleeves, she was about to prove that genius doesn't wear a suit. The gleaming floors of Wellington Aerospace Industries reflected the harsh fluorescent lights. As Kate Williams stepped through the main entrance, her worn sneakers squeaked softly against the polished concrete, a sound that seemed to announce her presence to everyone within earshot. She clutched a manila folder containing her resume, her knuckles white with nervous tension. At 34, Kate had learned to dress down for interviews. Her gray sweatshirt was clean but unremarkable, her jeans practical rather than fashionable. She'd pulled her auburn hair back into a simple ponytail, avoiding any style that might draw unwanted attention. Experience had taught her that looking too polished often worked against her. In male-dominated industries, the reception area buzzed with activity. Men in expensive suits hurried past, talking into wireless headsets about quarterly projections and military contracts. Kate noticed how their eyes slid over her without recognition, dismissing her as someone who clearly didn't belong in their world of high-stakes engineering. "Ms. Williams," Helen Foster approached with a professional smile. The executive assistant's tailored blazer and pearl earrings spoke of corporate sophistication. "Mr. Wellington is ready to see you." They walked through corridors lined with awards and photographs of sleek aircraft engines. Kate studied each image carefully, recognizing innovations that had revolutionized the aerospace industry. She'd followed Wellington Aerospace's work for years, admiring their breakthroughs in fuel efficiency and turbine design. The industrial workshop they entered took Kate's breath away. Massive overhead cranes moved engine components with precision, while technicians in clean coveralls assembled million-dollar prototypes. The air hummed with the sound of sophisticated machinery and carried the familiar scent of machine oil and metal shavings. Marcus Wellington stood at the center of it all, commanding attention even from across the room. His silver hair was perfectly styled, his navy suit custom-tailored to project authority. At 55, he'd built Wellington Aerospace from a small repair shop into a global powerhouse, and his confidence showed in every gesture. "So, you're the mystery applicant," Marcus said, barely glancing up from his tablet. His tone carried the casual dismissal of someone accustomed to being the smartest person in the room. "Your resume was interesting, though I have to say you're not quite what we typically expect for a senior engineering position." Kate straightened her shoulders, meeting his gaze directly. "I understand this is an unconventional interview, Mr. Wellington." "Unconventional is putting it mildly." Marcus gestured around the workshop. "This isn't exactly a place for—" He paused, his eyes taking in her simple attire. "Well, let's see what you're made of, shall we?" Behind Marcus, Dr. James Harrison and Kevin Anderson exchanged skeptical glances. The real test was about to begin. Marcus led Kate toward a workstation where a complex engine component sat partially disassembled. The prototype gleamed under the bright industrial lighting, its intricate maze of tubes, valves, and electronic sensors representing months of development and millions of dollars in research. "This," Marcus announced with theatrical flair, "is our latest breakthrough in hybrid turbine technology, or rather it was supposed to be." His voice carried a note of frustration that suggested this wasn't the first time he'd discussed the problematic engine. 3 months ago, it was running perfectly. Then something went wrong. Dr. Harrison stepped forward, his face grave. "We've had our entire engineering team working on this around the clock. The engine starts, runs for exactly 43 minutes, then shuts down completely every single time. The shutdown sequence is perfect," Kevin added, his young face flushed with the embarrassment of repeated failure. "No warning indicators, no error codes, no mechanical stress signs. It just stops." Marcus turned to Kate with a challenging smile. "We've run every diagnostic in the book. Thermal imaging, vibration analysis, computer simulations. Our best engineers, men with decades of experience and advanced degrees from prestigious universities, are completely stumped." Kate approached the engine slowly, her eyes scanning the complex assembly. She could feel the weight of skeptical stares from the gathered technicians. Several had stopped their work to watch what they clearly expected to be an embarrassing spectacle. "The contract deadline is next Friday," Marcus continued, his voice growing sharper. "The military is threatening to cancel the entire project if we can't deliver a working prototype. That's $1 million contract hanging in the balance." He picked up a wrench from the nearby tool cart and held it out to Kate. "So, here's my challenge. Miss Williams, if you can figure out what my team of experts couldn't, the job is yours. Senior engineer, full benefits, starting salary of $150,000. And if I can't," Kate asked quietly, though she was already studying the engine's cooling system with growing interest. Marcus chuckled, the sound echoing off the high ceiling. "Then I'll know my instincts about hiring practices are still sound." He glanced at his expensive watch. "You've got 2 hours. Think you can handle it?" Kate reached for the wrench, her fingers closing around the cold metal with surprising confidence. 2 hours should be plenty. The workshop fell silent except for the distant hum of machinery. Even the technicians working on other projects seemed to sense that something significant was about to unfold. Kate Williams had just accepted a challenge that had defeated some of the brightest minds in aerospace engineering. As Kate began examining the engine more closely, the skeptical murmurs started almost immediately. She could hear them. Despite the workers' attempts at discretion, snickers and whispered comments that weren't quite meant to be inaudible. "Seriously? She thinks she can solve this?" Kevin Anderson muttered to a colleague near the parts cabinet. "My little sister could probably identify more engine components than this lady, Dr." Harrison crossed his arms, watching Kate's every move with obvious disapproval. "Marcus, I have to question the wisdom of this exercise. We're wasting valuable time that could be spent on actual solutions." Kate knelt beside the engine, running her hands along the housing while carefully avoiding the hot surfaces. Her movements were methodical, almost reverent, as she traced the path of cooling lines and electrical connections. To the observers, her approach seemed amateurish, too gentle, too cautious. "Is she afraid she's going to break it?" one technician called out, earning laughter from his co-workers. "Lady, it's already broken." Marcus leaned against a nearby workbench, clearly enjoying the show. "Take your time, Ms. Williams, no pressure at all." His sarcasm was thick enough to cut with a knife, though. "I should mention that Dr. Harrison here has 2 engineering degrees from a prestigious technical institute. Kevin graduated summa cum laude from his university's mechanical engineering program, and Tom Brady, over there," Marcus gestured toward the gruff supervisor, "has been working on engines since before you were probably even thinking about careers. 30 years of hands-on experience." Kate ignored the commentary, focusing instead on a series of small sensors embedded in the engine's secondary cooling circuit. Something about their placement seemed off, though she couldn't quite put her finger on what was bothering her. "Maybe she needs the instruction manual," Kevin suggested with mock helpfulness. "I think we have a simplified version somewhere that uses smaller words." The laughter grew louder. Even Helen Foster, who had been maintaining professional neutrality, allowed herself a small smile at the comment. "You know what I think," Dr. Harrison said, his voice carrying across the workshop. "I think this is what happens when companies prioritize diversity over competence. Good intentions, sure, but engineering isn't about feelings, it's about results." Kate's jaw tightened, but she kept her focus on the engine. She'd heard variations of these comments throughout her career, and she'd learned that the best response was always the same: let her work speak for itself. 43 minutes, she said quietly, more to herself than to anyone else. Always exactly 43 minutes. Marcus checked his watch again. 1 hour and 58 minutes remaining. "Ms. Williams, though honestly, I'm not sure why we're dragging this out." Kate continued her methodical examination, seemingly oblivious to the increasingly harsh commentary swirling around her. She had developed an almost meditative focus, her fingers tracing wire paths and testing connection points with the confidence of someone who truly understood what she was looking for. "Has anyone checked the thermal expansion rates?" she asked quietly, not looking up from her work. Dr. Harrison scoffed. "Of course we have. That was literally the first thing we investigated." We're not amateurs, Miss Williams. What about the sensor calibration sequence? Kate persisted, now examining a cluster of temperature monitors near the engine's core, all within normal parameters. Kevin answered impatiently, look, we've been through every possible variable. The engine meets all specifications, passes every test, and runs perfectly until it doesn't. Kate finished. She stood up, wiping her hands on a shop rag. The timing is too precise to be random. 43 minutes isn't arbitrary. It's a threshold. Tom Brady shook his head dismissively. Lady, we've run thermal profiles, stress analysis, fluid dynamic simulations. If there was a threshold, we'd have found it months ago. Marcus was growing visibly impatient. The initial amusement of watching Kate fumble through the challenge was wearing thin, replaced by concern about the approaching deadline. Miss Williams, I appreciate your enthusiasm, but perhaps it's time to admit that this problem is beyond your capabilities. Kate walked around to the opposite side of the engine, studying it from a different angle. The cooling system routing seems inefficient, she observed. Why run the secondary lines through the lower manifold instead of the upper housing? Because that's how the specifications were written. Dr. Harrison replied curtly, we don't question the design parameters. We follow them. But what if the specifications are wrong? Kate asked, her voice still calm despite the growing hostility. The workshop erupted in laughter. Kevin nearly doubled over, slapping his knee. Oh, that's rich. The specifications are wrong. Marcus, did you hear that? Our mystery applicant thinks the entire engineering team that designed the system made a fundamental error. Those specifications, Dr. Harrison said with barely contained anger, were developed by some of the most brilliant aerospace engineers in the country. They've been tested, retested, and validated through computer simulations and physical prototypes. Marcus pushed himself away from the workbench. Ms. Williams, I think we've seen enough. This has been educational, but I have a business to run and a deadline to meet. Kate didn't move from her position beside the engine. Give me 5 more minutes, she said quietly. Please. Something in her tone made Marcus pause. Despite everything, there was an unmistakable confidence in her voice that hadn't been there before. Kate knelt down again, this time focusing intently on the area where the secondary cooling lines connected to the main housing. Her fingers moved with purpose now, testing fittings and examining joint connections with the keen eye of someone who had found exactly what she'd been looking for. The thermal expansion, she murmured almost to herself. It's not the engine that's the problem. It's the sensor placement. She looked up at Dr. Harrison with sudden clarity. You said the engine runs for exactly 43 minutes every time, right? No variation. That's correct, he replied grudgingly, though his tone suggested he wasn't interested in prolonging this exercise. And the ambient temperature in this workshop, what do you keep it at? Tom Brady answered automatically, 70 to standard for precision work. Kate nodded, pieces of the puzzle clicking into place. In her mind, the sensors are measuring temperature differential, but they're not accounting for the gradual heat buildup in the surrounding housing material. After 43 minutes, the metal expansion reaches a critical point where it creates a false reading. Kevin rolled his eyes. That's ridiculous. The sensors are calibrated for thermal expansion. We're not rookies here. They're calibrated for the expansion of the components they're directly monitoring. Kate continued, her voice growing stronger with conviction, but not for the expansion of the mounting brackets that hold them in place. She pointed to a series of small metal brackets that secured the temperature sensors to the engine housing. These brackets are made of a different alloy than the housing itself. They expand at a different rate. After 43 minutes of operation, the differential expansion creates enough stress to pull the sensors slightly out of alignment. Marcus stepped closer, his skepticism wearing with genuine curiosity. Even if that were true, we're talking about tiny movements. Fractions of millime, fractions of millimeters are enough. Kate replied, the computer interprets the skewed readings as a critical system failure and initiates an automatic shutdown to prevent damage. The engine isn't broken. It's being overprotective. Dr. Harrison shook his head. That's impossible. We would have caught something that basic during initial testing, would you? Kate challenged gently. Your initial tests were probably run in shorter intervals before the thermal expansion reached critical levels. By the time you started running longer tests, you'd already committed to the current sensor configuration. The workshop had grown quiet again, but this time the silence felt different. Several technicians had stopped their own work to listen more carefully to Kate's explanation. Marcus found himself actually considering her theory. It was elegant in its simplicity, the kind of oversight that could easily be missed by engineers focused on more complex potential failures. "All right," Marcus said, his voice carrying a note of challenge mixed with genuine curiosity. "Let's say you're right about the thermal expansion theory. How do you propose to fix it?" Kate was already reaching for a toolbox, her movements now confident and purposeful. "We need to relocate these 3 sensors to mounting points that use the same alloy as the primary housing. It's a simple modification that should take about 15 minutes. Dr. Harrison crossed his arms. "Ms. Williams, those sensors are positioned precisely according to the original specifications. Moving them could affect the entire calibration system, only if we move them significantly." Kate replied, already loosening the first mounting bracket with practice efficiency. "We're talking about a shift of maybe to in close enough to maintain accuracy, far enough to eliminate the expansion differential." Kevin watched skeptically as Kate worked. "Even if you're right about the cause, you can't just start modifying a prototype without proper documentation and approval." "Procedures," Marcus held up a hand. "Under normal circumstances, I'd agree. But we're past normal circumstances." He paused, studying Kate's confident movements. "How long did you say this would take?" 15 minutes to relocate the sensors. Then we run a test cycle," Kate answered, not looking up from her work. "If I'm wrong, you're out 15 minutes and can put everything back exactly as it was. And if you're right," Marcus asked. Kate finally looked up, meeting his gaze directly. "Then your engine will run continuously without the 3-minute shutdown." The workshop was completely silent now, except for the soft sounds of Kate's tools and the distant hum of ventilation systems. Even the skeptics seemed mesmerized by her methodical approach to the modifications. Tom Brady moved closer to observe her technique. Despite his earlier dismissal, he had to admit that Kate handled the tools with the skill of someone who'd spent considerable time working with precision machinery. Within 10 minutes, Kate had successfully relocated all 3 problematic sensors to new mounting points. She double-checked each connection, tested the security of the brackets, and verified that the sensor readings matched the expected baseline values. "There," she said, stepping back from the engine. "The sensors are now mounted on brackets made from the same alloy as the housing. The thermal expansion should be uniform across all components." Marcus looked at his watch. 45 minutes until the end of your 2-hour window. "Think your theory is worth testing?" Kate nodded confidently. "Start her up." Dr. Harrison moved to the control panel, his expression still skeptical, but tinged with something that might have been hope. "Initiating startup sequence," he announced. The engine came to life with a smooth, powerful hum. The engine ran smoothly through the first 10 minutes, then 20, then 30. As the 40-minute mark approached, every person in the workshop was watching the control panel displays with intense focus. The usual chatter had died completely, replaced by the steady hum of the engine and the collective holding of breath. 42 minutes, Dr. Harrison announced, his voice tight with anticipation. 43 minutes, Kevin called out, staring at the digital readout. The engine continued running. 45 minutes, Tom Brady said, disbelief creeping into his voice. Marcus stood frozen, watching the displays show perfect operating parameters across every system. No warnings, no anomalies, no sign of the mysterious shutdown that had plagued them for months. 50 minutes, Helen Foster whispered, having joined the crowd around the control station. Kate remained calm, but a small smile played at the corners of her mouth as she watched the faces around her, transform from skepticism to amazement to something approaching awe. "How is this possible?" Dr. Harrison muttered, checking and rechecking his instruments. "We've been working on this problem for 3 months. 3 months, Marcus slowly turned to face Kate, his expression cycling through confusion, embarrassment, and growing respect. "Ms. Williams, I think I owe you an explanation about my behavior today. No need. Kate replied gently. I'm used to proving myself, but I am curious, Marcus continued, his voice softer now. Where exactly did you learn to diagnose problems that stumped my entire engineering team? Kate straightened, finally ready to share the truth she'd been carrying quietly all day. I have a master's degree in aerospace engineering from the same technical institute where Dr. Harrison studied. I also have 8 years of experience designing propulsion systems for a major defense contractor. The workshop fell silent again, but this time the silence was heavy with realization and growing embarrassment. Before that, Kate continued, I spent 4 years as a Navy aviation mechanic, troubleshooting engine problems under combat conditions where failure wasn't an option. Kevin's face flushed red. Why didn't you mention any of this earlier? Because I've learned that when you look like I do, people don't always listen to your credentials first, Kate answered simply. They make assumptions based on appearances, and sometimes it's easier to let your work speak for itself. Dr. Harrison stepped forward, genuine remorse replacing his earlier arrogance. Ms. Williams, I owe you a sincere apology. Your analysis was brilliant, and we treated you terribly. Marcus nodded slowly. The job offer stands, but I suspect our standard salary might be insufficient given your qualifications. Perhaps we should discuss a position more appropriate to your expertise. As the engine continued its flawless operation well past the 1-hour mark, the atmosphere in the workshop had completely transformed. Technicians who had been snickering an hour earlier now approached Kate with respectful questions about her modifications and methodology. Ms. Williams, Tom Brady said, extending his hand with genuine warmth. I've been working with engines for 30 years, and I've never seen anyone diagnose a problem that elegantly. That was textbook genius-level troubleshooting. Kate shook his hand gratefully. Thank you, Tom. Sometimes the simplest solutions are the hardest to see, especially when everyone's focused on complex possibilities. Dr. Harrison was still studying the sensor modifications, shaking his head in amazement. The expansion differential was so subtle that our computer models didn't catch it. We were looking for dramatic failures when the problem was incremental stress accumulation. It's easy to miss, Kate assured him. I've seen similar issues in aircraft engines where different metal alloys created thermal stress points. The key is understanding that sometimes the mounting hardware matters as much as the components themselves. Marcus had been unusually quiet, clearly processing the full implications of what had just occurred. Finally, he approached Kate with an expression of genuine humility. Miss Williams, I need to be completely honest with you. My behavior today was inexcusable. I made assumptions based on your appearance and my own prejudices about what an engineer should look like. Kate nodded acknowledgement, but didn't interrupt, sensing he needed to finish his thought. The truth is, Marcus continued, Wellington Aerospace has been struggling with innovation lately. We've been too insular, too convinced of our own expertise to consider outside perspectives. Today proved that diversity isn't just about fairness. It's about survival in a competitive industry. He paused, looking around at his team. I want to offer you a position as senior design engineer, reporting directly to me. Your starting salary would be $200,000 plus benefits and equity participation. Kate considered the offer carefully. I appreciate that, Mr. Wellington, but I have one condition. Name it. I want to implement a mentorship program for young engineers, regardless of their background or how they might appear in an interview. Talent comes in many forms, and this company needs to recognize that. Marcus smiled, the first genuine smile Kate had seen from him all day. Agreed. In fact, I'd like you to lead that initiative. As they shook hands, the engine continued its steady operation in the background, a testament to the power of looking beyond assumptions and recognizing brilliance wherever it might appear. Kate Williams had not only fixed the impossible engine, she had fixed something much more important. CTA, 100 words. Sometimes the most extraordinary people come in the most ordinary packages. Kate Williams reminds us that genius doesn't announce itself with expensive suits or prestigious titles. It reveals itself through quiet competence and brilliant insight. Have you ever been underestimated because of how you looked or where you came from? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience might inspire someone who needs to hear it today. Don't forget to subscribe for more incredible stories of hidden talent and unexpected triumph. And let us know where you're watching from. Remember, never judge a book by its cover, because the next person you underestimate might just change everything.